individuals in the common law that's very interesting that such a thing is occurring there, and I'm expecting an oscillation, a larger political movement that will, in a sense, reflect that arising out of Ireland, and that will be the Irish contribution to whatever it is that really picks up in June and July of this year, which is going to seriously involve the UK. It gets into an issue here, okay? And I don't want to be insulting to anybody. I want to be very clear about this. I'm not intending to be offensive. I'm expressing a personal view that many people will find offensive, and I will choose my words to try and minimize that offense, and I will recognize that a lot of individuals will react to this viscerally and emotionally, and I am not intending that effect to occur. I'm just using words that I know ahead of time will affect that. And so what I have to say here is that our data shows that the UK, I want to say Greater Britain, okay, I don't want to say United Kingdom, because what we see is a revolution in which the kingdom component of Greater Britain is definitively upset and is no longer valid. And that it comes from a strange point of view within our data, because it comes from, if you will, a religious reformation in which it is decided that the expression of religions that we have now, that we call the faith-based religions, are in fact approaching morality from a master-slave relationship, and we find that the data suggests that the individuals that will be leading the revolution in the Greater Britain area will be coming from a viewpoint of, like, let's say, philosophical purity, for lack of a better word, and they will actually be of a pretty much rejected initially in any event by their fellow citizens, because they're going to be very irritating with this statement that you cannot reform and revolt until you reform yourself and overcome the inbuilt programming that says worship the god, bow the head to the queen, and it's all the same thing.
See,
Makes sense?
What we're no want to see in the UK is a revolution, but what they want to see is a changing of the guard almost, Cliff, you know.
I understand that, and I understand that everyone wants lawful rebellion, if you will, and that you guys don't want revolution. And I'm not suggesting violence by any means whatsoever, because we have a lot to suggest that that will not be the case, and that naturally there will be 2 or 3 or even more. I know for sure 2, and it seems to be a suggestion of 3 personalities that will be kind of like gruff northern Gandhis for the people in the landmass that is England and Scotland, and there's going to be a different set of circumstances for the Irish, and there's going to be this little bit of oscillation that's going to go on, and the system as it is constituted now will not be so constituted in the future. So I know you guys are all, and this is why I don't want to be offensive, and I'm not trying to urge anybody to go out and overthrow the Queen or anything like that, but I'm here to tell you that the data sets that we now have, in spite of the fact that you may find this offensive, are indicating that the Queen and the whole monarchy issue and the whole divine right of rule, as well as the underlying assumptions inherent in Christianity as it has been put out into the Western world, will be in a huge state of chaos in 2013, and that at the center of that chaos will be what we all call Greater Britain at the moment.
Okay. Well, that leads me to my next question from a good friend of mine, Croft. Can you ask Cliff if we collectively, now I probably think that he's speaking collectively as in globally, can we globally or collectively change the game?
It certainly seems that way. It certainly seems as though the collective nature, not the protesting or any of that, but the collective nature and focusing on the potential for something really bad to happen, as well as the collective grumbling, seems to have averted the original Israeli mistake. So in terms of how those descriptors were out, they eventually trailed off, although we still have some of the archetypes there and some of the other language in play, it's nowhere near. So yes, I think that it is quite possible. How much that level of change extends and in what direction is a fascinating area of study that I probably won't live long enough to even see started. I don't know. Could we all focus and change the nature of what's going on in the sun? Theoretically, I don't see any reason that couldn't occur. I don't know how it would be done, that sort of a deal. Could we stop the Earth from growing? Well, maybe we could, but I don't know that it would be good to do so. Maybe there's some things we just have to live through and, have our character revealed by it.
Mm-hmm. Is October this year when Clif expects the first of the large CME from the sun to affect the planet?
The potential really starts ramping up from April 19th. The Patrick Garrel is this fellow from Belgium who's translated all these Mayan mathematics that go to an intensity level of the sun that seems to be tracking well. We also have NASA, which is an organization within the United States dedicating to lying to the United States people about what they're really doing out in space. And NASA is also very fearful about what's going on relative to the sun, and we see this in a lot of the moves that they're making. A lot of these moves that NASA has been making have been correspondingly at the same time as been indicated by Patrick Garrel's math that we would see various different things happen on the sun. So just taking that as a so far so good kind of a metric, we've had Patrick Garrel suggest that this cycle would complete on such and such a day and we would see an event and so on, and these indeed have occurred. So that being the case, just following those numbers, we start ramping up into serious double digits of intensity value for the sun beginning on April 19th, with a completion of the next cycle on July 15th, with a completion of the next cycle, I think, on October 11th, and so on. The October cycle has an intensity number that's in triple digits. So the very low triple digits, I think it's 100 or 200 or something. So the potential exists there. The probability, though, grows over 2012 as we ramp up into the very high triple digits in the intensity value as we approach December. And then it sort of wanes as we go on into 2013 all the way out to May of 2013, where we drop back down into intensity levels that are in low double digits.
Okay. Another question here for you, Clif.
Mm-hmm.
See. I've got that money coming in. Will the radiation from the reactor problem in Japan have any effect on food consumption? He says, this is from SBURU, Sabru, I suppose that's pronounced. Or is it Sue? I don't know, I'm not quite sure. There in the US or globally?
We had no indication at the time that I was writing all of this and getting the data of the nature of what was going to occur, but we knew that we were going to get into a food crisis this year from a number of different sources of problems, not only the economics, but also the crash in the grain production globally because of what's going on in the weather, but also a situation where we were going to have a mass poisoning from meat here in the United States, as well as all different kinds of food sources affected here in the United States. This was discussed in the previous SHAPE reports, SHAPE 9, 8, and 7, I think. And I had no way of knowing at the time, and we didn't even have a speculation about what the cause was going to be, but it sure looks like that could be a rational explanation for that forecast if we have radiation hitting the west coast of the United States, because instantly a number of things will happen. The mere confirmation of radioactivity reaching all the way across the Pacific to the United States sets into motion a number of things, including basically the abandonment of any food grown on the west coast, because it would be instantly suspect whether true or not. So there's going to be huge impacts on the agricultural industry. And then there's also going to be the corresponding impacts on the United States dollar as all of our infrastructure becomes stressed and tested in all of this. It would not surprise me at all that very intense levels of radiation make it all the way over to continental North America, and that was the cause for the immediate food crisis that's going to overtake my nation here through to about September or so.
Sure. I've still got loads of questions lined up for you.
You keep going.
Clif.
You keep going. When
Okay.
my wife gets over here and hits me on the head, we're done.
Well, I'd like to say hi to your wife. How you doing there?
No, she's off doing her own stuff now.
Okay.
When she comes close, I'll let you talk to her.
Cool, okay. Well, listen, guys, if you want to call into the show, Scottish Sovereign on Skype, if you want to call in, feel free. And we've got some more questions lined up for Clif. We'll be back just after this.
Carl from Canada here. You're listening to TNS Radio, the station you can rely on to ask pertinent questions and seek the untold truth.
Helping to bring in the new civilization with TNS Radio. This is Ian Moore.
Hi, this is Brian Neal, and you're listening to TNS Radio, opening eyes and minds all over the world.
And you're back live with TNSradio.com. A few more questions coming in for you, Clif. To do with the contamination, the radiation there. In other words, is it possible for the radiation to contaminate the food and their growing period?
What we're looking at for the radiation falls out into very specific categories. I can state with some level of schooling and education, because I've studied radioactivity as it presents itself to the military, both in the form of bombs and reactors for things like nuclear submarines. And what we're going to be faced with as a planet is the issue is the following: the strontium gas radiation, for which potassium iodide is effective. That will be most effective in Japan. It seems unlikely that we'll have strontium issues here in the United States, so the potassium iodide is less likely to be effective here. That's really all it protects you against, is the radioactive strontium. The other issues we'll have here is the form of radioactive fallout. So the radioactivity, if it gets to that point, will, if the containment... All right, let me back up. The Japanese were really smart, and they built these giant concrete bowls underneath their nuke plants because they figured something might happen. If the nuclear material all aggregates and melts down and forms a pool, it can melt down through that concrete, and it'll eventually touch the ground, and it'll start digesting, basically melting it through itself through the earth until it's all used up. As it does so, vast quantities of radioactive gas are going to pour up into the air. The higher they go, the further they will dissipate all around. It will make Japan very unhealthy to be in, and it will affect the Pacific Ocean all the way around. The level of radiation to reach the west coast, bearing in mind the rotation of the planet and the direction of the winds, will tend to bring all of that radiation towards us if it reaches the higher jet stream, 300 millibars or greater. So it'll affect Alaska, it'll affect the upper coasts of Russia, and potentially the west coast of the United States, and it'll affect our food supply if it comes down in the form of particulate fallout. And that will be most dangerous because you wouldn't know it, you couldn't tell it, couldn't see it.